Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to the Big Top. This is Two-Way Tonight, Friday, December 5th, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, the final episode of Two-Way for the week, barring breaking news, and you never know. There could be a Friday night news dump. I always thought the news dump's a little uncouth. Anyway, thank you for being here. I'm Mark Halperin, your host of Two-Way Tonight, and I've got a vicious mosquito bite on my calf. And I have Dear Prudence, the Beatles song, stuck in my head. So let's all show me a little peace, love, and understanding and presumption of grace as I try to get us through an hour. I don't know if this is the good news or the bad news. You could look at it either way, really. Two great guests tonight. Two great guests. A returning guest, one of the best pollsters, strategists in the Republican Party's here tonight. And then a state representative from Philadelphia who also is a leading figure on the Democratic National Committee Board. Malcolm Kenyatta, Patrick Ruffini are here. I'll leave it to you to guess which is which. They'll be here in a moment. We're going to run through the day's news. A lot of the stories we're going to talk about have been with us the entire week. Running narratives, leitmotifs. I don't know what the difference is between a leitmotif and a motif. I guess the motif showed up on time. Boom, boom, Anyway, we're going to run through some stories, the latest developments and some stories that have been with us through the week. For example, the Ukraine-Russia peace negotiations, the fate of Secretary Hegseth, the president, and the economy. Yeah. Then there's a few. Oh, the Minnesota fraud scandal, controversy, contretemps. What else? Well, and then a lot of new stuff, which is the president at the Kennedy Center for that soccer event. Pretty incredible pictures and sound from that. If you go on your news sites for your big news organizations, or you got a Twitter feed that hummels your brain with news stories, everybody's making a big deal about the fact that the Supreme Court agreed to rule on the president's birthright citizenship policy. I mean, so when the Supreme Court stories tend to play out in four beats. They agree to accept a case. There's an appeal that goes to the Supreme Court. Number one. Number two, the Supreme Court accepts the case. Number three, they hear oral arguments. Number four, they issue the opinion. And throughout my career, I've been asked to cover the first three like they're big stories. Wake me when it's over. I'll cover the decision. But I don't know. I'm not all up in arms about the fact that they took it. Now, sometimes it's not clear that they'll take a case, and that's the news story in and of itself if they turn it down, because that's the end of the line in most instances. But I was expecting them to take this case. So I'm telling you right now that happened, but don't expect this hour to contain a lot of information about that. All right. If you're on the Two-Way platform, you want to get in the conversation, and I suggest you do, because our guests tonight are filled with wisdom and knowledge. Raise your hand if you're here on the platform. If you're watching on X or YouTube, don't raise your hand. Don't put smack in the chat. Do the do's and don'ts. Don't put smack in the chat. Don't raise your hand. The do's: do extend the presumption of grace to all. Do have peace, love, and understanding, and imbue everything that you do. Not a throwaway line. None of those are throwaway lines. Sometimes people make light of my saying no smack in the chat. I don't want to work in a place with smack in the chat. I don't want to be part of building a company where smack in the chat is not only tolerated, not only encouraged, but is the very business model of the organization. It's not what I want to do for a living. I don't want to be a smack merchant. I don't want to be an exploiter of the smackitude sensibility. So please, no smack in the chat. Our guests will be here in a moment, and if you don't know them, you're going to fall politically in love with them. They're two great guests, and I'm honored and delighted they would spend the hour with us. So stand by for that. But here's a word from a sponsor. Perhaps you've heard me talk about our good friends at Cozy Earth. Damn it, they're good. The bubble cuddle blanket, the towels, the sheets, and of course the pants, the t-shirts. I don't talk enough about the t-shirts. I probably should talk more about the t-shirts. But I do talk more than enough about the pants, because once again, ladies and gentlemen, it happened again. I got an email from one of you saying, I bought my husband a pair of pants. He doesn't normally care what pants I buy him. He loved the pants so much, he asked me to buy him more. And then before I did, he bought them himself. He never buys clothes online for himself. This story sounds familiar to you, because I hear from folks all the time. If you haven't bought the pants yet, you're thinking, whatever, the pants. Buy the fucking pants. They're really good. And now you can get them for 40% off. Everything on CozyEarth.com is 40% off if you use the promo code 2way. Go to cozyearth.com, promo code two-way. Not sure how the sponsor would feel about me using profanity, but dear Cozy Earth, it's a manifestation of my appreciation for how great your stuff is. Cozyearth.com, promo code two-way. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I promised you great guests. Let's hope they don't screw it up. Let's hope they're as smart as they're supposed to be. Ladies and gentlemen, returning, Patrick Ruffini. If you don't get Patrick's Substack, big error. When I worked at ABC News, one of my bosses, we had an employee pension plan, 401k, and every dollar you put in, the company matched it. They might have even put in $2. And when my boss said he considered this an IQ test. If you didn't do the plan where they matched the thing, you were too stupid to work there. If you don't subscribe to Patrick's Substack, I just consider you suspect. Patrick, welcome in. Thank you for making time. Tell everybody a little bit about your Substack and about the other things you produce, and about the paperback edition of your great book.
Thank you so much, Mark. Yeah, so Substack is the intersection at patrickruffini.com, and every week and sometimes more, really try to cover the best stories in politics, data, and technology. Right, the intersection. That's the intersection of all of those topics. So usually Fridays are the days where I send out my roundup. I think this week was an interesting week with the Tennessee 7 special, where, I just really want to push back on this idea, right? There's this idea out there, this very, and I think it's a little bit of cope from folks on the right, that you've got these Trump voters who will only come out for Donald Trump. So I have a piece up this week that kind of pushes back on some of those arguments, because not to say that Republicans didn't have some challenges and don't have some challenges to face before next year, but I don't think that's necessarily one of them. And here's what I think, and I've been very clear about what I do think are the problems. So I also wrote the book, Party of the People, Inside the Multiracial Populist Coalition, Remaking the GOP. That's kind of a mouthful, but really kind of talking before the 2024 election. This came out a year before the 2024 election. Really talking about the potential that we would see a realignment of the party coalitions, that we would see more diverse voters moving to the right, moving to Trump. That ended up happening, right? So the book kind of got a second wind after the 24 election. And I think those votes very, very clearly up for grabs right now. I don't think I don't know that it's going to be a steady right. It's going to be a steady uninterrupted movement to the right. But I think that these are the voters of this multiracial working class coalition that Trump was able to rally in 24. Democrats are clearly making a play for them. So I think they're going to be this. It's going to be a very pivotal voting block heading into the midterms.
The thing about Patrick is he knows art and science, right? He's a brilliant data guy, but he also understands the flesh and blood of politics. It's very rare. There are other people, but very few. But also, when you read Patrick's stuff, you'll see he is so intellectually curious. It jumps out of every sentence he writes. He's so interested in figuring things out and then generously sharing it with others. Patrick, be honest. No need to be poker face or falsely modest. When you go to family reunions, you're considered the smart one, right? Everybody in your family is like, "Oh, Patrick is so smart." Am I right?
Well, I think when you're from DC, everybody assumes, everybody kind of assumes you know everything about politics, and I'm like, but
not
really true. I mean, the wisdom, I think the wisdom is
a lot
more.
You know a lot
dispersed than we think it is.
Very grateful to you for being here. More Republican knowledge gathered in one place, with the possible exception of when Karl Rove dined alone. There you go. Malcolm Kenyatta, Mr. Representative. So glad to see you.
Good to be with you. Good to see you.
Really, really generous of you to make time. Your district, state rep. First of all, how long have you been a state representative?
This is year 8.
Year 8. Did you
but
beat
I'm aging in dog years. Man.
Yeah,
it's tough.
Did you beat an incumbent?
No, I had a messy 5 or 6 way primary to get to this seat, and then I had a former Democrat turned Republican who ran against me in the general.
So you've been on the ballot 4 times for this seat, right?
Four times for this seat.
What's the lowest percentage you've ever gotten in the general?
70 something.
Okay. And what's the most you've ever spent in a race, primary in general?
So for my House seat, maybe a quarter million.
Quarter million. Okay. Your district's Philadelphia. What are the three most famous tourist attractions in your district?
In my district, so you have the Met, not to be confused with the boring Met in New York, but the
Yeah.
Metropolitan Performance Center.
Yeah.
You have the heart, the beating heart of college football right now, it seems, Temple University, which is in the heart of my district. And then my district stops right on the border of the Philadelphia Love Park statue. So I take a little bit of credit for that, even though it's across the street.
All right. So you don't have the Franklin Children's Museum.
I don't. Yeah.
No.
The Franklin Institute.
Yeah, Franklin Institute. That's an incredible place. I would move. I would move to Philly just to take my son there every day.
You should. It's fantastic. We're lucky to have it.
And are you a native of Philadelphia?
Born and raised, third generation Philadelphian. You know, in it.
Yeah. Who's the best mayor of Philadelphia of your lifetime?
Best mayor of my lifetime, former Governor Ed Rendell.
And who's the best governor of your lifetime? Maybe Ed Rendell.
You know what? I'm going to give this one to my dear friend, former Governor Tom Wolf.
Okay. Lastly, there's a big article in the Atlantic magazine. You can pass on this if you want, but big article in Atlantic magazine about your current governor, and it says something that others have heard. Not every Democrat in the legislature is enamored of Governor Shapiro. Is it true that he's not super popular with Democrats in the legislature? Is that a true fact?
I don't know if I would say that's true. I think Josh has really strong relationships. I'm going to be honest with you, as I will throughout the hour. I didn't read the Atlantic article. My subscription has lapsed, and this was behind the paywall. And I said, I'm not going behind the paywall. Enough of you will talk about it, and I'll get the drips as it comes.
All right. Somebody will put their password in the chat. You can grab that. Lastly, sir, you're a DNC board member. What does that mean?
So I'm vice chair of the Democratic Party. I will tell you, after the 24 election, like a lot of people in my party, I was pretty, despondent with the direction of our party, with the outcome of the election. And my first instinct, to be honest, was to retreat from all of it, from politics, and certainly from national politics. I'd never been involved in party politics. I always just ran my own races and did my own thing. But I got a lot of encouragement, and somebody said something to me, and I wish I could give them credit, but now I say it all the time. You don't have to be frustration-free to get involved. And actually, it's your frustration that should drive you. And so it was my frustration that led me to say, we didn't have anybody running for vice chair of the party who had actually run for public office. And who had actually been serving as a local elected official, as I do, where my neighbors don't let me off the hook. I see them at church. I see them in the grocery store. So, like Patrick, I'm getting a constant focus group of people who are not shy about telling me what they think our party should do and what they think our politicians should do. And I felt like that was a helpful perspective for the national party.
Yeah, really interesting. I'm gonna give you a free piece of advice, and then we're gonna go to the news. And again, very grateful to you both being here. This is something Paul Begala says. Which is if somebody has a really good line, the first time you want to use it yourself, like in a speech, you say, well, as my friend Paul Begala often says. And then the second time you use it, you say, as someone I know once said, da da da. And then third time you just steal it and use it as your own. So you're on phase 3 now. You can just use that line. You don't need to credit it to anybody.
Here.
All right, here we go, gentlemen. And again, very grateful to you for being here. Let's talk about the president's poll standing. The New York Times, apropos of virtually nothing, ran a story today about the president's poll standing. They just looked at a bunch of recent polls. Number 4, Trump approval dips as views sour on as views of his handling of the economy sour. The shift, while small, is notable after months of stability in President Trump's approval rating. So, Patrick, first, Pinocchio, has the president's approval rating dipped in a small but meaningful way recently? Is that true?
I think true, but question is it a now thing? Is it happening now, or is it happening, or is it a function of the shutdown? I mean, I think we have pretty historic, good, long-running historic data. We've had enough government shutdowns. These are typically not good. I know I think he was trying to position himself as somebody who's trying to fix the government shutdown. But these are not typically good for the incumbent, president. They have not been good for the Republican Party in general. And so I think very clearly there was something happened right around the time of the government shutdown that caused a decline in some of these polls. So the question is, I've seen maybe, maybe it's come up. I mean, I see in that chart, I see a little dip up,
Yeah.
but those are you got to not read too much into that.
Yeah. Malcolm, there's stories today about how Senator Schumer is saying, well, we need to start talking about ideas on affordability, on housing, on food, on energy. And of course, the president and his team for the State of the Union are trying to do the same things. If Senator Schumer asked you, Malcolm, what's a concrete, specific idea, not a criticism of Donald Trump and not an area of a problem like housing, but a specific idea that you'd like to see national Democrats talk about on affordability? What's the specific idea you'd recommend to him?
So it's one thing that I think we've sort of walked away from, but I think we need to come back to, and it's sort of layered. The first is we have to take on the corporate consolidations that we're seeing. We're seeing them in media. We're seeing it in terms of the meatpacking industry, and we're seeing it across ag. Ag is Pennsylvania's biggest industry, so something I know quite a bit about. And when we look at the collusion that we have seen, that's not just Malcolm's opinion, but around eggs, around housing, with the big renter companies coming together to figure out how they're going to raise prices for people. We have to take on the big corporate consolidation, which is really taking a hammer to small businesses and ruining what I think makes America America. This idea that you have real innovation. For companies owning everything, you're not going to get the type of innovation that we need to see in our economy, and also the type of competition that leads to companies, lowering prices.
So be for a tougher antitrust scrutiny of market consolidation. Is that what you're saying?
I think that is a big part of the conversation we need to be having. Not the only thing, but you asked for one.
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting one. So today, number 18, there's this three-way bidding war. Philadelphia is Comcast. They're close to in your district, right? The Comcast
they're right outside.
Right outside. Yeah, like 2 blocks outside, though.
That's right.
I'm just basing on what you said about the love sign because I know roughly where those are. Anyway, today the three-way battle for what's it called? Time Warner, not called Time Warner anymore. It's called, what's that thing called? Warner Discovery. I don't know what it's called. Anyway, the thing that owns CNN and Friends. Netflix wanted them, Comcast wanted them, and Paramount wanted them. And today they announced that Netflix has won at least the initial round. Wall Street Journal, Netflix mega deal will need the Trump administration's blessing. White House officials and Department of Justice are already scrutinizing the streaming company's $72 billion deal for Warner Brothers. This is only the part of the company that has HBO, the Warner Brothers library. That includes Friends. So we're talking about Ross and Rachel here. And then the CNN part, the part that CNN and the cable channels, that would be its own separate company. That's all Comcast wanted too. Paramount wanted the whole thing. Paramount's going to go to court and try to stop this. And again, as this headline suggests, there's some question of whether the government will allow there to be a combination of Netflix, the monster streamer, with the Warner Brothers things, including HBO. Patrick, do real people care about this? I know they care about the brands, but is this a populist issue at all? This particular deal that you think the public will be engaged in?
I don't see that, right? I don't see that. You've had the Trump administration, they get involved in some of these, they allow some of these. There's obviously been noises from this idea that, oh, we're now, from a policy perspective, it's a populist, it's a populist coalition, it's a populist party now, and you would see them be more open to this type of antitrust scrutiny. But in general, when the rubber meets the road, that hasn't happened. Now, I will say, President Trump has had he has a lot of interest in media. He comes from media.
Yeah.
He has dealt with these people. So I think he may have a personal interest in this.
Yeah.
But from a philosophical standpoint, I don't see the Republican Party having shifted its views on these issues.
Malcolm, when you mentioned antitrust and consolidation, you didn't mention Ross and Rachel, but is this the kind of deal that you think the Democrats should say, no, this won't be good for consumers, too much consolidation?
This is a perfect example of what I was talking about. But I think in some ways, one of the bigger challenges is that the Department of Justice isn't actually viewing these consolidations, viewing these deals through an impartial lens. Everything in this administration is viewed through, how close you are to Donald Trump personally, the direct engagement with him, the flattery, the ability for him and his family to possibly be a part of the deal. And so that to me is a real problem. And there's been at least some chatter and talk that, Netflix is not sort of, nice enough, I guess, to this administration. And so that's why they're going to get the scrutiny that, Paramount did not get when they blew up their company.
Right. All right. If 0 is no surprise at all, and 10 is abject shock, if you read a report in the Wall Street Journal that said President Trump opposes the deal because the Obamas have a relationship to Netflix, what would your reaction be? 0 is no surprise at all, and 10 is abject shock. Malcolm.
0.
Patrick.
I don't know, 4?
Dude, there's only one answer to that. You're 4 too high. 0. All right. Anyway, we'll see if that deal goes through. It's an interesting media story. Some follow-up reporting today on the Pete Hegseth story and the story of the so-called second tap, and the question of was Tom Cotton right when he said that there's nothing wrong here based on what they saw and what they heard, or were Democrats like Congressman Himes right that say the video is very disturbing? As far as I know, we have not heard from Chairman Wicker, the powerful Republican chairman of the powerful Armed Service Committee. I say powerful twice because when George Bush was trying to out-populist John McCain in 2000 after he lost the New Hampshire primary, he'd always describe John McCain as the powerful chairman of the powerful Commerce Committee. So how powerful he was. Anyway, haven't heard from Roger Wicker. So the question still swirls, is Pete Hegseth safe? Most indications are, if you look just at the president's treatment and everything else, totally fine, not going anywhere. So we wondered what the bettors at Polymarket, our partners at Polymarket at Court, they'll take bets on anything. They'll probably have bets on the Paramount and Netflix thing. What did they say? Before we show that, Sam, don't show it yet. Don't show it yet. Patrick, you're a keen student of everything. What do you think the Polymarket bettors say? The percent chances that Pete Hegseth is out by the end of March. What do you think the Polymarket bettors say?
What would it be under 20? I mean, I would say under 20. Well, under 20.
Okay, under 20. Yeah. Malcolm, take the over under. Patrick said it at 20. Over under 20.
I'm taking the under on that.
Taking the under. Let's show it up. Here's what the wagers at Polymarket said. 23. Sure. Sorry, you both lose. 23, and it was as high as almost as above 50 just a few days ago. So obviously the wagers there thought that the events of the week, first they thought he looked imperiled, and of course Signalgate as well, but only 23% say he'll be out by March 31st. I would say until Chairman Wicker speaks, I'm holding my fire on any sort of prediction on this, but that's what the folks at Polymarket say. Interesting outcome. All right, we're just going to jump around, guys, because there's a lot, and I want to save time to show the president at the Kennedy Center today. So let's talk about this Minnesota case. You guys following this Minnesota fraud case? Kind of an incredible cross-cutting themes and issues. You've got all sorts of things. You have the fraud itself, which everybody seems outraged by appropriately. You've got questions about the president's treatment of the Somali American community. You've got the war between the governor of Minnesota and the president. And then you have some introspection about how this happened. How was it that these fraudulent activities that cost $1 billion, some say, was allowed to occur? Here's a television personality who happens to be a senior government official today. I don't even need to tell you who he is because you're about to see him, and everybody knows him. His Q factor, which is a combination of likability and people recognize him. His Q factor's off the charts. It's right up there with Daryl Dawkins in the 1980s. Is that when Daryl Dawkins was on the Sixers? 80s? I think so. Here it is. A gentleman you all know talking about the Somali fraud and his perspective on it. Number 2, please.
It's true. A Somali fraud ring in Minnesota stole over $1 billion from Medicaid. How did this happen? Well, Medicaid programs are run by the states, which in Minnesota means the Tim Walz administration. Governor Walz and the state's other Democrats rely on Somali votes to get elected, so they decided to look the other way because they were afraid of, quote-unquote, political backlash. Don't take my word for it. That's what a Somali American fraud investigator told the New York Times. When these scammers realized that nobody was guarding the cash register, they went gangbusters. One program designed to provide housing stabilization assistance to patients ballooned to $104 million, when 4 years ago it was projected to cost only $2.6 million. Some of these taxpayer funds may have even ended up in the hands of a Somalian terrorist group. Scary stuff. When CMS became aware of the housing program situation, Minnesota insisted it could clean up its own mess. A few months ago, it admitted it could not. So we stepped in to shut down the fraud-infested housing initiative. Today, we're taking action on more than a dozen other programs, which I've outlined in the post below. Our message to Walz is clear. Either fix this in 60 days or start looking under your couch for spare change, because we are done footing the bill for your incompetence. This administration will never stop fighting to protect the vulnerable Americans who rely on these programs and the taxpayers who fund them. We're going to crush waste, fraud, and abuse.
I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it's very hard to simultaneously host a YouTube program and a podcast, because the people listening to the program who couldn't see, you may not recognize that voice. It's the voice of Dr. Oz. Probably did a disservice to the podcast audience by not telling you on the front end. Anyway, Dr. Oz. Malcolm, where do you disagree with Dr. Oz's critique, and where do you agree?
Well, as somebody who ran in that primary against Fetterman for U.S. Senate and then saw the general, I knew his voice even without seeing him. But let me say in general, I've not followed this closely, but I don't need to follow it closely to say that fraud is wrong. And if there's evidence of fraud, obviously you want to stop that. But so much of this rings hollow when you have an administration that seems to filter everything through a partisan lens when it comes to waste, fraud, and abuse or criminality. If you're friends with this administration, then your criminality is excused and washed away. If you're not friends, then it's excused. Then it's the worst thing that's ever happened. I want us to figure out what the hell is going on with people's money, with all of our tax dollars that are going to programs that should be about making people's lives better. And I don't care if it's a Democrat or Republican administration, wrong is wrong, and we need to be against it. But we need to see unanimity in terms of that message from this administration. And sadly, we don't see it. And that's why I think you get this reflexive partisanship on many of these issues.
Malcolm, you speak for tens of millions. Beautifully said, including the both of course, wanting to get to the bottom of the fraud, but also this administration sees more reason to criticize people who aren't their friends, and obviously they're using this in a partisan way, even though it's a massive degree of fraud and it's an outrage and should be investigated. Patrick, if I walked into a Tucson, Arizona diner and said, "What do y'all think about this fraud thing in Minnesota?" You think they'd have any idea what it is?
Maybe to a degree, right? To a degree. I mean, I think that a lot of other things we might be discussing tonight. I think they do. I think to some degree, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the president has very colorful rhetoric on this that really draws attention to it. But I also think it's a very soft target. Where was Tim Walz when all this happening? I mean, he was in charge, and now he's running for a third term, so he's not a lame duck. So he has I mean, I think that's a pretty, only a few states kind of allow third terms, but I think that he could be in trouble, right? And I think he did not necessarily like his run for VP. I think, in that VP debate kind of came off as this goofball, hapless character. And that's now how it looks like he was running the state. So I think it's just been a political bonanza frankly, for the administration, and from multiple dimensions, because obviously you have an immigration angle to this. You have Ilhan Omar, right? Sort of the political head of that community, really not the most popular Democrat. And you have Tim Walz at the center of it.
My spidey sense says that this scandal is going to impede his march to a third term. That's my spidey sense. Notice I didn't say he'd lose, but I think it's going to impede his march to a third term. Your questions just a minute, so please raise your hand if you'd like to get in the conversation. Here's President Biden today speaking at an event in Washington, D.C. Number 7, please.
Folks, that's my message to all of us today. To all who love our country. To all of us who are dismayed by the present state of the union. This is no time to give up. It's time to get up. Get up and fight back.
Malcolm, would you and your fellow DNC members like to see the president active in the midterms campaigning around the country?
Listen, let me first of all just say something to what he just said. I'm going to answer your question
Yeah,
directly,
of
but
course.
I'm happy to see the president, the former president, giving people this message, because I do think across the political spectrum, the Republicans don't love President Biden, but who are also dismayed with what's going on in the country right now. And I'm happy to hear him talking about people getting engaged in the political process. I think it's true of all political figures that there are going to be areas in communities where you showing up, you're very popular. That's going to be a great place for you to be. There are going to be districts that are more tenuous where people don't want you campaigning there. The president was in Nebraska recently, a Nebraska Democratic Party, function. I think it was their most sold out event ever. People were happy to see him there. I think there are going to be some members in swing districts who are saying, please don't campaign, here. But I think the former president understands very well the existential nature of people raising their hands, running for office. And I think getting common sense, serious people elected to Congress who actually see Congress as a co-equal branch of government. And I think that's going to be at the core of the race next year, whether or not members who are running and want to remain in Congress or want to be there for the first time are going to say, irrespective of their political party, that they're going to be a check on this administration.
Patrick, I was struck by the fact that neither the current president, nor the current vice president campaigned in Virginia or New Jersey in these races in person, in the governor's races. I'm wondering, how in demand do you think those two people will be on the campaign trail in the midterms?
Well, look, I think that we saw in the Tennessee special election, right? And that was one where clearly Republicans thought, like, hey, there's a potential for some serious embarrassment here, even if it's not flip, but if it's within a couple points, which is where it was looking possibly to be headed, based on some of the polling. And then you have the president come in a very, very strong way, encourage early voting.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but not in person.
Not in person, but I'm saying, like, I do think that he came in, but had he come in person, I think that would have been welcome given his strength in the district. But you're right. I mean, look, I think that this is going to be a district by district decision about where he goes and where he doesn't go. And, if there are places that went pretty strongly for him, where he needs to drag out, and then they need to drag out the entirety of the MAGA vote to win. I think they're going to deploy him, but I think that compared to the first term, right? I mean, I feel like, to me, I think they're being a little bit more judicious about where they're deploying him and whether they're not deploying him. I think the interesting question, right, is not only about Biden for the Democrats, but who are going to be the in-demand kind of Democratic campaigners, right,
Yeah.
going into the midterms. I mean, you've got Gavin Newsom leading all the polls now. Kamala Harris went to Tennessee. But would you want Gavin Newsom to be campaigning for you? So I think, like, as we're looking to 2028, right? Who the leading national figures are. You've got Newsom, you've got Buttigieg, Harris is still up there in some polls. You've got AOC. And I have trouble seeing who's going to be the big draw.
Yeah.
Right, for Democrats, for these Democratic candidates.
I'll just note that you both very skillfully didn't answer my question, either in spirit or in fact. I appreciate how skillfully you did it, and I'm too tired. I'm too tired to press you to be with more specifics. Here's one clip of the president at the Kennedy Center today, number 12, getting a medal because he hasn't gotten the Nobel Peace Prize, but he got the new FIFA Peace Prize from the head of FIFA, who is just a master at sucking up to the president. This is just a weird piece of video.
Everywhere you want to go. Right now.
He put on his own medal.
Fantastic. Excellent.
Watch it. Yeah. Anyway, I want to get to community questions. So we're not going to show you. There's pageantry and celebrity galore there. Go watch it on C-SPAN. One more thing I want to tell you about. This morning, we talked in the morning meeting about how little coverage there's been of Ukraine-Russia over the last 24 hours, including the Ukraine-Russia peace talks in Miami yesterday. And I thought, well, surely people should be talking about a war in Europe that could lead to the destruction of NATO and the hard choices for everybody. So finally, we did get an update shortly before we went on the air This is a long post on X from Steve Witkoff, and I'm just going to read it. If you guys want to comment, you can. Otherwise, we'll go right to community questions. But here's what Steve Witkoff belatedly gave a readout, including saying the meetings are going to continue tomorrow. This is on Steve Witkoff's Twitter account, readout of his meeting, Jared Kushner, and some Ukrainian officials. Over 2 days, so they met yesterday and today. Maybe they didn't do a readout because they were still meeting. Special Envoy for Peace Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner met with Ukrainian Secretary blah, blah, blah. Constructive discussions on advancing a credible pathway towards a durable and just peace in Ukraine. Today, the group had their 6th meeting over the past 2 weeks. Secretary Umarov reaffirmed that Ukraine's priority is securing a settlement that protects its independence and sovereignty, ensures the safety of Ukrainians, and provides a stable foundation for a prosperous democratic future. Next page. The participants discussed the results of recent meetings of the American side with the Russians and steps that could lead to ending this war. This statement is a bunch of pablum. Let me just go through, make sure see if there's anything we actually want to hear. Both parties agreed real progress, blah, blah, blah. Next page. And long-term recovery. All right, this is interesting. Parties also separately reviewed the future prosperity agenda, which aims to support Ukraine's post-war reconstruction, joint U.S.-Ukrainian economic initiatives, and long-term recovery projects. End of the war, credible steps, blah, 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 concepts of redevelopment, blah, blah, blah. Parties will reconvene tomorrow to continue advancing discussions. When I called it a readout, I should have said, whatever. But they're having a day 3 of meetings. And of course, it'll be interesting to see what happens after these meetings end, because is somebody going to go back and see Putin or not? All right. You guys want to say anything about that?
I'll say briefly, Mark, as you mentioned news about what's happening in Ukraine. It's been very little discussed as well. The unmanned drones that came within a whisker of President Zelensky's plane, recently. And so I think over and over again, it's pretty clear that Vladimir Putin is not interested in doing what would end this war. And, it's pretty simple. You stop firing missiles at Kyiv, you take your troops out of Ukraine, you respect the sovereignty of their borders.
Patrick, want to say anything about this?
No, I would just say earlier, I think that, look, people gave Steve Witkoff a lot of running room after particularly the success in Gaza and the success brokering that peace agreement, and the fact that, I think they've actually responded to that was not something that they were able to, at least on that initial deal that they had announced, that 28-point deal. And it sounds like they've taken feedback and responded to it because that was deeply problematic from the standpoint of Ukraine.
Well said. I just got an email from Elizabeth Warren, not really from Elizabeth Warren, but from her fundraising team. I just want to read you part of it. It's about this Netflix thing, and I think it's kind of funny. Blah, blah, blah. The merger would create one massive media giant with control of almost half of the subscriber streaming market, owning movies and shows like. And then the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. About 25 lines are TV shows. I'm just going to read it really fast, so I think it's hilarious that she did this. Ready? Here we go. White Lotus, Love is Blind, Stranger Things, Succession, Squid Games, The Sopranos, Wednesday. You guys know what Wednesday is?
Oh, yeah. Good show.
It's a good show. Okay. Euphoria, Game of Thrones, The Big Bang Theory, the DC Universe. What's that? DC Universe? Is that about Marvel comic, like DC, like comics?
Mark, you're going to have the comic people against you. Though.
Is that a comic thing? All right. Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, The Last of Us, Sex and the City, every Turner classic movie, Bridgerton, The Circle, The Wire, Veep, Curb Your Enthusiasm, The Crown, Narcos, and so much more. I don't know. I can't imagine the founders imagined that there'd be a U.S. senator listing 25 TV shows. But then again, they wouldn't know what email was. All right. Quick word from a sponsor, then to your questions. If you're here on the platform, want to get a question in to Malcolm and Patrick, please raise your hand. Big sale, Black Friday discount, 30% on BrickHouseSale.com. No promo code. Go directly to BrickHouseSale.com to buy products at this huge discount for better nutrition. This was just announced a few days ago, and it's still available to you. Doctors having a Black Friday sale. You don't see that often. Products like Lean, doctor-formulated weight loss supplement for people who want to lose meaningful weight. No more yo-yo dieting up and down. Just lose it slowly and carefully without injections. You all know my position on the injections. I'm not against them if you need them for health. But if you just want to lose weight to look good and feel good, my friends, please, this is a good idea. Field of Greens, a super fruit and vegetable drink. All available to you now. 30% off. Go to BrickHouseSale.com. BrickHouseSale.com, 30% off the whole site. Give it a try today. Here we go. Raleigh, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are and then ask your question for Malcolm and for Patrick. Thank you for being part of Two Way. And I'm sorry if we woke you.
You didn't wake me. I'm just cold.
Okay. Where are you?
Yeah, no, I'm in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, it's
And
known to
yes,
be very cold in Austin, Texas, Raleigh.
I'm a born and raised Texan, so I
Okay.
get cold when it falls below 60.
Understood.
Yeah, so my question is that so do y'all think the reason so there was a big bidding war for Warner Brothers Discovery,
Yeah.
and it went on for a while, which we all know. And I was wondering if y'all think that the reason they chose Netflix, Ellison, was for reasons that were political, because it seems to me that the Ellisons are more on the conservative side, and Netflix tends to be more from the liberal side. And what are the odds, do y'all think, that this is actually gonna happen, and this is gonna get through?
Yeah.
Or do y'all think that the
Yeah.
administration is going to try to tank this?
Yeah. Two-part question. Why did they do it, and will it go through? Patrick, you want to tackle? Well, I'll tackle both of them. Go ahead.
I'll admit I haven't really been too up to speed on all the details of this, but I do feel like certainly I think that when it comes to obviously there's like the angle with the Obamas and the entertainment side of things, and are they pushing some sort of liberal agenda through their programming, right? I mean, does that become a salient issue? I think that there's just a much clearer link, right, when it comes to, I think, anyone who's providing news coverage, right, of the president and CBS and those issues, right. It sounds like there's been a pretty substantial change in direction at CBS as a result of, perhaps, the Trump administration's involvement. So, I think that has been, I don't doubt that this will be a something that they look at. I think in his words, very strongly. We're going to look at it very strongly. But is it going to be right for something that's an entertainment, primarily entertainment versus news? Is it going to be the same thing?
Yeah, Malcolm, you have a view on one or both questions. Why'd they go with that bid, and will it go through?
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. Like the answer to most questions, money. The Netflix offer was above the valuation of the company by, I think, about $10 billion. Netflix offer also is more cash instead of sort of stock and other things. But I think that you're not going to see clear-cut political lines on this. As Mark just read, you have a very well-known, powerful Democratic senator who is opposed to this deal. And you have many other people, including me, who look at all of these consolidations with a very, caustic eye. So I don't think this will go right down the line. And my understanding is that the deal does not include CNN, which would be a separate thing. And so that may make it easier for them to ultimately get this deal done, frankly.
Yeah. So, Raleigh, I know a fair amount about this. It's my business, and I'm interested, and I read about it. I talk to folks about it. If you take the offer, the Netflix offer was just for the part of the company that's the streaming service and the studio stuff, not the cable networks, the linear cable networks. If you take the valuation by Discovery of the other piece that they're not trying to buy, and you add that in, the difference between the value of the Netflix offer and the Paramount offer is negligible. It's like less than $1 a share. Now, there is, as Malcolm correctly pointed out, there's a question of how much is cash. There's other variables as well. Paramount offered a big kill fee if the thing falls apart, billions that Discovery would get to keep if the deal fell apart. So there's a little bit of apples and oranges to the deal, but they're not so far apart in terms of the actual price. Remember also personalities involved here. My guess is, I don't know this, but my guess is the guy who currently runs Paramount, Warner Discovery, Jeff Zaz, I think he's probably pretty close to the guy who runs Netflix, Ted Sarandos. That'd be my guess. They're birds of a feather. They're similarly ideological, and Paramount is not. Paramount is gonna make it a real question for people who want CNN to stay liberal. It's going to be a real question if that happens. So I don't believe that this deal will happen. I believe either Paramount's going to go directly to the shareholders and try to make a bigger offer, or the administration's going to block it. That'd be my guess. Now, remember, Warner Discovery is in the midst of separating the two companies. That's what they were doing before all these suitors came a-calling. They claim they're going to continue to do that. I want to see what happens when they do that. There's some synergies that they're going to lose when they do that. And the value of those linear cable channels, Comcast did a very similar thing. You break off those linear cable channels. I think people are got to wonder what's going to happen with that piece of the company. Raleigh.
I just had one more question. So do you think the Ellisons are going to be able to go to the shareholders before they split the company?
Yes.
Okay.
I think they will. That's my sense. But the answer is nobody knows. Nobody knows. Raleigh, thank you. I love this topic. Glad to be able to talk about it. And obviously, as Senator Warren confirmed, large political interest. And as Malcolm pointed out, we've now got the Trump-Warren coalition against this merger. When those two set their mind to something, they typically get it. Peter, welcome in. Please focus your camera, unmute. Tell folks where you are, what's on your mind.
Okay. Well, if you remember, I was on last night and I was asking about the Somalia boat controversy.
Yes, sir.
Not Somalia. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was asking about the
drug boats.
Venezuelan speedboat controversy.
Yeah.
And I was trying to make the point, not to be overtly partisan, but to be partisan, that Representative Hines was on the one hand saying, I still respect Admiral Bradley, but yet on the other hand, this was the most disturbing thing I'd ever seen. And I guess I would ask you and ask our guest their perspective. It seems to me that by having Admiral Bradley testify, that completely, one, it diffuses the situation, and two, it sort of diffuses this element that the Democrats have been using and trying to say to people in the military, don't follow illegal orders. When you had somebody like Admiral Bradley say there was no issue about this.
Yeah.
I was the one who made the call, and I completely support it.
So
anyhow,
Peter,
that's what I was trying to say last night.
Yes, sir.
The question was whether what Hines actually said. I think Hines actually did say, I completely still support, or I completely still respect Admiral Bradley. He actually said that right before, not
yes,
after.
sir. Yes, sir. Sorry. So I want to address it, and then I want you guys to weigh in if you wish. Until we hear, as I said before, from Senator Wicker, and until we hear from Admiral Halsey, who was fired according to the Wall Street Journal, protesting the overall mission, I don't know that we're done with this story. Right now, it would seem that it's been put to rest. But I don't think we're done with it until we hear from those two guys. And as was pointed out by the New York Times today correctly, all this focus on this one piece of this one particular event has distracted from the larger focus, which bothers many Republicans in Congress and around the country. Not everybody. This overall operation, is it legal? And I think you're going to see more conversations about that if Mr. Halsey, Admiral Halsey, and Chairman Wicker weigh in. Patrick, you have thoughts on this?
I just think, as we've seen Rand Paul get involved, we've seen the sort of reawakening, right, of this libertarian constitutionalist, wing of the party that we thought was dead with the rise of Donald Trump, and so it's been an interesting debate to watch. But my sort of bottom line on this, especially on, when it comes to, I think, Donald Trump is not new to this idea of fighting the cartels, something we've been talking about since 2016. And I think specifically as it relates to these cartels that are shipping drugs into the country, I think if you ask your typical, your average Republican voter, which is what we know, President Trump that's who he's paying attention to. That's the barometer. That's his North Star. If you ask them, should we be holding back against these people somehow that are bringing untold amounts of drugs into the country? I just don't see this as being a huge vulnerability for the administration, particularly when we're getting into a debate about whether were they targeting the people, or were they targeting the boat? You know, and I think once we get into these legal technical debates, like these are very valid debates to have. A lot of Republicans in the Senate have, you know, and so some Republicans in the Senate have said we should have that discussion. But in terms of being something that everyone's trying to, I think, almost manufacture this idea of, oh, there's this crack up on the right, there's this MAGA crack up, there's this libertarian wing that's making trouble for the president. I mean, when it comes to President Trump's actual support with Republican voters, I just don't see it making a dent.
Yeah, Malcolm, I saw some polling data today that's just Patrick's right, not just about Republican voters, but independents and some Democrats who aren't interested in any constitutional niceties. They say if they're off killing people who are bringing drugs to America, go to it. What's your view of the overall issue, sir?
Well, I think there are many people in the American public who are, first of all, just starting to pay attention to this and try to understand the details. I think we need to release the full footage about the second strike that members of Congress were able to see after they deal with issues around classification. But I think more to the point, and I have felt this way for a long time, people can go back and Google it, Democratic administration, Republican administration, I am sick of Congress outsourcing their responsibility to the executive, allowing presidents of either party to effectively wage foreign wars without having the guts to actually vote. If we're going to send our military into harm's way or drop American bombs or use American power, then folks in the legislature ought to have the courage to vote on whether or not they should be there and whether or not this is a mission that should be engaging with American power. But more to the point, there are clear, unequivocal issues about legality of these strikes. And I've disagreed with Rand Paul on a lot of things, but I am proud that he is speaking up in this way. And I find it pretty shameful that when he tried to get a vote on this very topic, that the Senate refused to do it.
Not only do you speak for tens of millions, but you speak with great passion and principle on something that, even if you don't decide to oppose this thing in the end, it should be debated. And Congress's abrogation of its war powers, not just rights, but responsibilities for the last 40 years is an outrage. Loved what you said. Thank you for that. All right, a couple things. First of all, I called Jeff Zaslav, or David Zaslav, Jeff Zaslav. Not sure why I did that. After saying I know so much about the story. His name is David, not Jeff. Here's a tweet from Ro Khanna moments ago. Malcolm, you a Ro Khanna fan?
I like Ro. Ro's a good friend of mine.
Okay, I figured, because you guys are both sensible progressives who understand the real economy. And
one of the best articles said, Malcolm, do something Democrat is running for when I ran for office. And I think that's where I am.
Yeah, and he's from Pennsylvania, as you know. Here's what Ro Khanna also opposes the merger, ladies and gentlemen. So now we got a Trump-Warren-Khanna coalition. He says, J.D. Vance, yesterday we talked about it in this program, J.D. Vance, in an interview with NBC News, said 3 Democrats he found particularly interesting: Bernie Sanders, mayor-elect of New York City, and Ro Khanna. So he said, J.D. Vance, you said you find some of my ideas interesting. How about we both oppose the Netflix-Warner Brothers merger? Here's why. Netflix will not release enough theatrical movies. The theaters could end up collapsing. They did not even put K-pop Demon Hunters in theaters, ! Again, the founders never foresaw that sentence. He's making an assumption there, I say with respect to Representative Khanna. Netflix says that if they do succeed with the merger, they will release theatrical movies, but Ro Khanna somehow knows not enough. AI will be deployed to undermine artists instead of making better movies. So more slop instead of better films. Again, I say with respect to Congressman Khanna, I don't think that's a problem with this merger. I think that's a Hollywood problem in general. Creators will have fewer places to sell their work. True. It's combining the biggest streamer and third biggest, so consumer prices rise. Could be true. Netflix will now feed a century of Warner Brothers once siloed content into its AI modules, consolidating the biggest cultural data trove under one tech giant. I say if they can make more episodes with Ross and Rachel using AI, we should all be for the merger. I'm not even that big a Friends fan. So he's got 2 on AI. I got to say, I'm not super impressed with that tweet, Congressman Khanna. Just saying. All right, a quick word from sponsors, and then let's see if we can get one more question in. Here we go. Yes. You guys like to cook? Malcolm, you like to cook?
Do. Great cook.
You do. Patrick, you a good cook?
I outsource most. My wife is good at for me.
All right. Well, then maybe this is just for Malcolm. But Chef IQ Sense, the wireless cooking thermometer, takes all the guesswork out of cooking. Malcolm, you got a smartphone?
I do.
All right. You just put the app on there, and then it tells you everything: when to flip it, when to take it out, how long to let it sit. Food comes out perfectly cooked every time. If you got hard to shop for people on your list, here's a good opportunity. And again, massive sale, 30% off the entire site. Go to chefiq.com. Promo code is two-way. See if you can remember that. chefiq.com, promo code two-way. Dad, mom, brother-in-law, anybody on your list. Buy one for them today. Tell them two-way sent you. chefiq.com, promo code two-way. Just put the thermometer in, put the app on your phone. It tells you everything. It's, again, like many of the products we talk about here, it's like sorcery. So buy it, but also if the sorcery police come to your door, tell them you didn't buy it. But in the meantime, everything will be cooked right. Lastly, last product of the week, CB Distillery, another discount, 25% off, cbdistillery.com, promo code two-way. The holidays can be hectic. You can be sore and tired and sleepless. Here's an opportunity, and maybe share it with your friends that buy as a gift. Over 2 million people have bought products from CB Distillery. And I asked the musical question, why not you? cbdistillery.com, promo code two-way, 25% off. Give yourself or someone you love the gift of better sleep, less stress, and pain relief with CB Distillery products. They're natural, quality, clean, no fillers, nothing artificial. Go to cbdistillery.com, promo code two-way for 25% off your entire order. Say it with me now, cbdistillery.com, promo two-way. And we close out the week with Sue from Colorado. Sue, welcome in. Thank you for joining again. Tell everybody what's on your mind for Patrick and for Malcolm.
I have a question mostly for Malcolm.
Yes, ma'am.
Malcolm, I'm a reliable Democratic voter, but I'm very frustrated. I hear the Democrats say over and over again, we have to fight everything that Trump says, but they don't come out with a proactive, let's say 5 points. Here are 5 things that Democrats stand for that we want to do. Maybe there are things in there that, they agree with Trump on. Maybe there are, probably a lot of things that they don't. So from your standpoint, you're the first elected Democrat that I could ask this to. What are 5 things other than local issues that Democrats should say, this is what we stand for, this is what our party is, it's not just opposing Trump?
Mr. Vice Chairman, write the party platform right here for us.
Exactly.
Here we go. So Sue, first off, thank you for being a reliable Democrat. Okay, let me do my homework and say that first. But more to your point, this is what I've been saying. I've been saying that the Democratic Party should be focused on, I think, 3 words in a simple idea, that our job in government is to make life better for people. I sort of reject in some ways, not the sense that we should be rowing in the same direction, but I sort of reject this idea that we should be looking for one size fits all approach to the broader agenda of making people's lives better. Take the last election. You had Zoran, Mikey Sherrill, Abigail Spanberger, 3 very different Democrats, even among the 2 gubernatorial candidates. All of them, I think, would say that they centered affordability as the heart and soul of their campaigns. But in all 3 campaigns, they talked about and highlighted different issues. Even being vice chair of the Democratic Party, I reject this idea that there's 6 of us in DC who have all the best ideas and we need to outsource them to our communities. We need to, in fact, be looking at how do we insource good ideas from across the country. And I think the 2026 election in the primary process, put aside the general election, the primary process is going to be really important in terms of generating a broader sense of a collective agenda. But I think if we stay laser focused on how we want to make people's lives better and then allow candidates to plug in place the issues that really resonate with their neighbors, I think that's a path forward for us.
Great answer. All right, Sue, before you go, the 3 of you are going to answer the same question. Here we go. Who's most likely to ever be president of the United States? Ever be president of the United States? Rahm Emanuel or AOC? Rahm Emanuel or AOC? Sue?
Rahm Emanuel.
Patrick?
AOC.
Malcolm, break the tie.
Look at this bipartisanship, AOC.
AOC. All right. Grateful to you, Sue. Thanks for being part of the community. Grateful to you. And Malcolm, loved having you on. I hope you'll come back regularly.
I would be happy to. I really enjoyed this conversation. But you have to sing if I come back. I didn't know we would get singing, so now this is the thing we have to do.
Yeah, I'll tell you what song I want to sing. I'll see if you know this song. Hold on, just give me a minute. Patrick, thank you for being here. Tell everybody again your Substack and your book while I look up this song.
The book is Party of the People, and my Substack is at patrickruffini.com.
Malcolm, you know this song by Casey and JoJo, All My Life? You know
Oh
that
my
song?
gosh, of course.
All right,
Of course.
next time you come, you and I are duet on that. What do you think?
Here,
It's
here.
my, my new
in.
favorite song. I listen to that almost every night, and then I cry a little bit, and then I have some peach schnapps, and I go right to bed. Gentlemen, very grateful to you both for making time for us. Thank you all for Thank you all for watching and for being here all week. And Monday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time, some great guest hosts next week on the morning meeting. I don't want to reveal their identities yet, but I think you'll enjoy them. So I'll see you Monday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Thank you for being part of Two-Way. We say conversations like no other, and I believe we had 10 such conversations on my 2 shows this weekend, and Megan and everybody else. So thank you for being part of it. We'll see you Monday morning, 9 a.m. Thank you both.